Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and welcome to Ridley Scott Movie Week. Yes, that's right guys. All throughout this week, I will be reviewing a batch of films that are directed by the legendary talented filmmaker slash director himself, Ridley Scott. Yeah. Because, Ridley Scott, another one of those top best directors who has made quite a handful of films that have made film history. And definitely Ridley Scott is someone that, obviously for anybody, for the first time, say, watching, say, like, Thelma and Louise, Gladiator, you wouldn't at first expect and realize that those films were directed by the same guy who did Alien. Yeah. But yes, so, the first film that I'm reviewing, part of Ridley Scott Movie Week, well, because you read the title, you know what this is, and, well, you saw the thumbnail. Yes, that's right, guys. I am finally reviewing, not to mention that this one Ridley Scott film is celebrating its anniversary. Yes. And I've been looking forward to reviewing this one, a part of Ridley Scott Movie Week. That being 1985's Legend. Yes, Ridley Scott's Legend. Man, because, yeah, this movie definitely has quite a history. The fact that it's most famous for having 4 different cuts, where we have the US cut, we have the European cut, and we have the director's cut, and another that, yeah, well, I'm sure you guys would obviously know this, but yeah. And, well, if you paid close attention to the thumbnail, and yeah, here it is again, because, yeah, obviously, I watched the director's cut, because, well, usually director's cuts would be considered the best, and, for Legend, Ridley Scott prefers the director's cut, as well as the other films that he's directed and such, but yeah. And I'll take his word for it. And yeah, good thing that I did watch the director's cut of Legend. Not only does the director's cut of Legend patch things up with things that obviously audiences didn't understand and just, head scratcher when it came out in theaters. And also, on account that the director's cut has Jerry Goldsmith doing a score for this movie. Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith's score being a part of the director's cut, as well as the European theatrical release, the cut, from European. But anyways, yeah, so, well, yeah, but the first things I have to say about Legend, and, yeah, because I rightfully chose the director's cut of Legend, well, of course, to be completely honest, as I always am, I think the director's cut, not theatrical, the director's cut of Legend is pretty good, of course, yeah, because a lot of people, they consider the director's cut, and as I said earlier, so does Ridley Scott, and I do too. With what Legend is like, and with what Ridley Scott and, and also William Sortbenberg, if I'm even getting his last name right, collaborated with Ridley Scott, bringing this film to life. Ridley Scott, he was inspired by a couple of classic Disney animated films like, say, Fantasia, Bambi, and also the 1946 Beauty and the Beast film was another inspiration for this film, too. In fact, that's one thing that Ridley showed William, what he showed him and what, Ridley was going for. And the inspiration and which would lead to bringing Legend to life and such. I'm sure you know this. I think that the story itself is not bad. Very interesting with what goes on, with what these characters that live in this beautiful, magical, enchanted forest what they are dealing with, where evil strikes, and is planning for there to be no more sunrises, no more dawns, and anything like that. Because forever, it would be just, say, a world of darkness, Earth itself. And with the characters that are in Legend, I think that they were some pretty good characters. Not bad, obviously all the cast members, they did their very best, and not to mention that this was one of the earliest films for, say, Tom Cruise. But especially, one of the biggest highlights in this film, cast members would obviously have to be Tim Curry, but until I talk about him some more, oh yeah. Because beautiful set designs, the interiors, and, the fact that Legend was most prominently filmed on one of the famous studio stages, which being Pinewood, and with what Ridley Scott brought to his direction of Legend, and beautiful cinematography, the lighting, the practical effects, this beautiful set designs, the costume, the wardrobe, the makeup, and, and speaking of the cinematography, I think, because to me, the cinematography and the lighting, it's the exact same kind of thing that was done in Blade Runner. Wouldn't you say so? Because that being another movie of Ridley Scott's, and, because just a couple years after he did Blade Runner, he did this. But, I think it is obvious because, thinking of various shots of Blade Runner, and with certain lighting, compare that to this. Oh, some big similarities. And for me, because, still, with the first things I have to say, because before seeing this, I was invested and fascinated with this movie. I knew about this movie for quite a while before I eventually saw it. I had seen just a few various clips of the film, most prominently watching a couple of clips of Tim Curry, and of course, Tim Curry, having to watch those, and the character, the antagonist he plays, definitely a really great character in this film, because it's Tim Curry. And not to mention that Ridley Scott was inspired to cast Tim Curry in Legend after seeing Curry in the Rocky and Horror Picture Show. Yeah, obviously, because the Rocky Horror Picture Show was definitely what made Tim Curry a big name. So and from there on, because knowing what the characters were and how they looked, and like I said, when I eventually would get a DVD copy, and I would prefer the director's cut, I found myself enjoying it, and I'm one of those that actually likes it. And of course, that being the director's cut, but just, you get my point. But overall, Ridley Scott's Legend may not be the best of his category of films that he's directed. That's understandable. Hey, any great directors like Ridley Scott, they're always once in a while gonna have one movie of theirs, maybe 1, 2, 3, that just, kind of but in this case for Legend, not too bad. Obviously, anybody, and I, of course, would recommend this, if you wonder if, there's a version of Legend that's really good, then watch the director's cut. Just, forget about the theatrical release, whatever, just, the director's cut will help, and, because, like I said, the director's cut helping with what was not fully established when it was first released in theaters, okay? So, because, to a lot of people, the theatrical cut didn't make sense, but, But anyways, but just again, Legend itself, and with the director's cut, a not bad movie of Ridley Scott's for anybody like me that have come to enjoy this. And that, of course, goes for the director's cut. Okay, so with the first things I've had to say about Legend now out of the way, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. Darkness seeks to create eternal night. by destroying the last of the unicorns. Jack and his friends do everything possible to save the world. And Princess Lily, from the hands of darkness, enter a world of unicorns, magic, swamps, dwarfs, and rainbows. Okay, so let's get into the film itself, breaking it down and so on, shall we? Okay, so, well, and by the way, because, almost forgot to point this out, because, well, and, hence I'm wearing the shirt, because, well, I mean, this is, this being a Universal film, but I think, the European release, yeah, because 20th Century Fox, they also distributed it. So technically Legend is, both a Universal and 20th Century Fox film. And I did do my research, and yeah, you guys probably know this too. But yeah. But the opening to the movie is really cool with the music that plays. It's nighttime, and well, one of the first characters we see, not physically yet, and yeah, because we don't physically see him until very later on into the film, like, I think by up to, say, the third act of the film, but, yeah, the Lord of Darkness, we hear his voice, and, well, because, literally, he's the first character that gets the first line of the film, I am the Lord of Darkness, and the Lord of Darkness, he's planning on there to be no more dawns, no more sunrise, for eternity, forever, eternal nighttime. And as I, well, read in the description / the story. And, yeah, and we only see a little glimpse of the Lord of Darkness. And not to mention that, I think for, both the US and the European releases of the film, where we technically did see the Lord of Darkness earlier. However, he had a different skin color, and his fingernails and eyes were glowing, like a neon effect or something, well, one of the Lord of Darkness's henchmen, Blix, a goblin, being played by Alice Playton. Yeah. So the Lord of Darkness summoning Blix, basically, and to put it this, where the only way for there to be no more dawns, no more sunrise, and for that, for eternity, and with what he's wanting, eternity of just nighttime, the only way doing so is to take down and kill two unicorns. These two unicorns that are the power and source for there being daytime and so on. Yeah. In fact, Blix, it doesn't click in Blix like what the Lord of Darkness is describing, and well, because the Lord of Darkness putting something on Blix's forehead, this will give you a good idea of what I'm talking about and such. Yeah. And also, Lord of Darkness mentioning about innocence. Yeah, mentioning that to Blix. And after that, well, Blix, and along with two other, henchmen of Lord of Darkness, Pox, being played by Peter O'Farrell, which is like he's like a pig-like character, and Blunder, whom is wearing some metal armor, and he's a dwarf. Blunder being played by Karen Shaw, I think, I said his name right, whom we would know him most prominently for being in, say, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as, the White Witch's henchman. But of course he's done more than that, so yeah. So after that, well, we then see one of our other main characters, Princess Lily, being played by Mia Sara. And Mia Sara, well, just 1 year after she would be in Legend, she would find herself in a successful movie of Paramount's, and that was from the genius mind of John Hughes. I think you know what it is. Yeah. Bueller? I had to, but it's true. Yeah. So, Princess Lily, and with what she's like almost throughout this film, well, that's not to say she's a bad character, and with what she would unintentionally do a little later, that has to do with the unicorns, but just overall, Princess Lily, this very sweet, kind lady, even when she visits these villagers, these peasants and such, and, because one of them being Nell, being played by Tina Martin, the little interactions that Lily and Nell have, and even Nell telling Lily that she should go find herself a man, a prince to marry, and so on, but Lily's doing her own thing, and she has no problem, spending time and often visiting those like Nell at the cottages and so on. Because Lily, after paying a visit to Nell, she then goes to find and meet with Jack, and Jack giving her a surprise, a jump scare and such, playfully, of course, and Jack being played by Ethan Hunt himself, Tom Cruise, and also, for Tom Cruise, like Mia Sara, just 1 year after doing Legend, good old Tom Cruise would find himself in another film of Paramount Pictures that would definitely be a big success for him, and not to mention that he would work with Ridley Scott's late brother, Tony Scott, and that, of course, being, The Need for Speed, So, for both Tom Cruise and Mia Sara, Legend not being a big success for both of them, but hey, in the end, and just 1 year after being in this, the two of them being in two Paramount films that, made them go big time, for sure. And as for Tom Cruise in Legend, because Tom Cruise, not a disappointment either. He did pretty good as Jack. With what Jack is like and this, generic, energetic, fun guy and, technically a prince, and with the relationship he has with Lily, well, it's obvious right there and then that they've got a great relationship, and I believe as though, because technically romantic, but even the time that they spend today, Lily wants Jack to teach her the ways of Rabbit. However, Jack has something else special he wants to do for Lily, and by blindfolding her and showing her this one part of the forest that's beautiful, beautiful stream, and when two unicorns step in, and little do they know, as well as the unicorns, that nearby, Blix, Pox, and Blunder, they are making their destination to find the two unicorns. And because we see the two unicorns, again, being the main power and source for dawn and, sunlight and such. And, because it's a very beautiful sight, for them seeing the unicorns, Lily and Jack. And Lily, she does something that apparently, as it's established, it's forbidden. She, is slowly but approaching the unicorns, even when she starts to sing and just, the various songs that are played in Legend, they're not too bad. The main song, and that was performed by Brian Ferry, which being Is Your Love Strong Enough? Because that was a pretty good one. Also, some of the various songs that Lily sings, Mia Sara, she's got a very nice, lovely singing voice. Because with Lily just getting too close to the unicorns, even when, say, the unicorns, they start to charge, and one of them is spinning around, going around in circles, of Lily. But, eventually Lily, calmly and gently touching one of them, and, nothing seems to be going bad, the unicorn's calm. But that is until Blix fires a dart, presumably to knock out the unicorn. And once the dart hit the unicorn just went ballistic and, causing both unicorns to run away. And Jack being very upset towards Lily about this because, again, it's forbidden for anyone in this movie to touch the unicorns. But, Lily, it wasn't intentional of her, of course. And, even like, say, when she says that she didn't care she did it, and Jack just warning her that, those words should not come out of her, mortal soul, just, yeah. And Lily trying to make things up for Jack and to, for them to both relax, and Lily offering to sing to Jack, even suggesting that they should probably get married, and a ring she has, it can be their wedding ring. And she then does this to Jack. The first one to catch the ring shall marry her. And she literally throws it down where, a river is and where cliffs are. And Jack, he literally jumps to go get it. Just, man. And that's not what Lily was expecting. And to speed things up some, because, well, what happens next is, yeah, eventually Blix and the others, they would, capture one of the unicorns by literally ripping off one of them, ripping off their horns. And because of that, well, apparently, the magical enchanted forest then starts to turn into winter. And Jack, because he jumped into the water trying to find the ring, well, it was too late for him to get out of the water because the water had froze and just, yeah. And Lily, sensing what all was happening, even when she goes back to one of the cottages where, yeah, because her friend Nell and this baby, I presume, yeah, the baby is Nell's, they froze. Yeah, they're frozen, not purely solid, but still. And even a moment where Blix, Pox, and Blunder, they barge in the frozen cottage while Lily's hiding up on the second floor. And yeah, they're having a great time that now that the mortal world is now frozen, it's icy winter. And and Lily just now feeling guilty with what she's unintentionally done. Again, it's obvious that she didn't intentionally meant for this to happen. And how was she really supposed to know what was to happen when she approached one of those unicorns? Yeah. And, well, Lily, she does want to make things right, to set things straight, and, yeah, with what she started, and yeah, she hopes that she can fix all of this. Fix all that she started, yeah, to also put it at that. And meanwhile, Jack, because when we would see him again, and by this point, because almost throughout this movie, Jack and Lily, they are separated. So we would see Jack near a fireplace, campfire and such, and because he woke up and, well, he would then see that he is greeted by various, forest creatures and such. And, well, one of them most prominently being the Gump. Yeah. The Gump, Gump being played by young David Bennett. Yeah. I know I've seen David Bennett in a couple of other films, but yeah, so, Gump and these dwarves and all these other, forest creatures and such, them coming to greet, Jack, and especially, Gump, and man, because Gump was a very interesting character, one of the sidekick characters in Legend, and especially his voice, like, I don't know, because I'm sure to some, like, probably because his voice being kind of annoying, but not to me, really, but just, yeah. But anyway, so basically, like, yeah, Jack mentioning to them about the unicorns and Lily having approached and touched one of them, and Gump being furious about this as well, the others, because, yeah, again, this is forbidden. And still to speed things up some, because there's one moment where Gump gives Jack a riddle, and the riddle being, what is a bell that does not ring, yet its knell makes the angels sing? And the answer to that, and when Jack figures it out, is bluebell flower, to hear the bluebells ring. And yeah, the sound of a falling petal, and which means your life is ending. And this triggers Gump, just like, and he kind of like passes out. But, just testing Jack, and yeah, but everybody's settled down and such, and even like say they have a drink to it. And eventually, yeah, because Gump and these two dwarves that would tag along with Gump and Jack, yeah, they would help out Jack and with what's going on. And those two dwarves being Screwball, being played by Billy Barty, and Brown Tom, who, by the way, provided the drinks, and for Jack especially. Brown Tom being played by Cork Hubert. And there's also this little, fairy, glowing speck, which being named Una. And Una being played by Annabelle Lanen, if I'm pronouncing her name right. Again, me sometimes. So all of them tagging along with Jack, and from there on, their journey and such, and well, because with them at one point finding and locating, the unicorns. In fact, the one unicorn whom his horn was ripped off, it was a male unicorn, yeah, just sitting there frozen, lifeless and such. And the female unicorn is there, keeping her lifeless mate's body company and such. And, it turns out that Jack, he can speak unicorn, and apologizes to the female unicorn for all that's happened. And, because, yeah, with what they found out, and as we see, that Blix and Pox and Blunder, because they got their hands on the male unicorn's horn. In fact, they actually, Blix especially has a bit of fun, like being the one with the power and such, but not until the Lord of Darkness steps in and sets Blix straight, and jeez Louise, Blunder stepping up for Blix and just taking huge balls to confront the Lord of Darkness, but yeah, the Lord of Darkness punishing Blunder, having him being sent to the underground dungeon and such. In fact, because the Lord of Darkness awakens a mummified guard to take Blunder down there to the dungeon and such. And, the Lord of Darkness finding out that they only took care of one unicorn, and, one unicorn's not going to do it for the Lord of Darkness. They've got to do both of them, the two unicorns. So now they have to get the second unicorn, which being the female, the only one that's still alive and standing, and still, being very powerful. But, because they took down the first unicorn, the male one, yeah, because most of the power being gone, and with, even though, like, the sun will rise, but, still, it has just begun, where the power of the unicorns is dying down. But yeah, so the Lord of Darkness ordering his henchmen to go after the second unicorn, and Lily just so happening to have overheard this. And meanwhile, Jack actually, because, and having spoken to the female unicorn, because the champion must take on the evilness and so on, with what they specifically say. And the champion just so happens to be Jack. Yeah. And Gump happens to know where to get some special armor and such for Jack. Yeah, so that's what they do, while leaving Brown Tom to keep an eye on the female unicorn. And while Brown Tom is doing that, yeah, Lily does show up and warn Brown Tom, and that, of course, goes for the female unicorn, that the Lord of Darkness, his henchmen, are going to be making their way to go after the female unicorn. And it's too late, because they do show up. Brown Tom takes on the three henchmen, dodging the targets that are struck at Brown Tom, and using a pan to dodge the bullets and stuff like that, the arrows, but Brown Tom taking an arrow to the head. Yeah, poor Brown Tom. But yeah, and eventually they managed to capture both the female unicorn as well as Lily. Yeah. And coming back to Jack and the others because, well, there is a moment where it's just Jack and Una having Jack keep a secret that, basically, Una can, be big, can grow big and such. And apparently Una, a few times, making a move on Jack. Well, who'd have thought that we'd see a fairy, and in this case, Una, just have a thing for Jack, but just, yeah, so, the secret is safe between both of them, and for Gump and the dwarves not to know, just, yeah, again, because this has to do with her growing big and such, yeah, being taller. Very similar to, like, how another fairy, which being Tinkerbell in Spielberg's Hook, where there's a moment where we see her grow big. So, yeah, that being as an example, where we would see something like that in another movie, where a fairy can actually make herself tall and such, full human size. Anyways, but, yeah, so Jack, having kept the secret with Una, and getting the armor and such. And when they make their way back to where they left Brown Tom and the female unicorn, well, because they discover that Brown Tom is laying in the snow, and thankfully, he does not die. He does survive. And, well, because with Brown Tom, telling them that, yeah, because the Lord of Darkness's henchman had shown up, and Lily was present by warning Brown Tom, and, yeah, because, again, the Lord of Darkness's henchman having showed up, and managed to capture both the female unicorn as well as Lily. Okay, so, what happens next? Well, yeah, because with them then making their destination to where they would then see the castle of the Lord of Darknesses, well, they would at one point find themselves, where a swamp is, and yeah, and this other character that, yeah, seems like another character that was one of those characters in this film, like the Lord of Darkness, that was really a really good character, another highlight of this movie. And that being this swamp monster that is large with, green skin hag and so on, with lank black hair, that being Meg Mucklebones. Yeah, I think I did pronounce that right. Mucklebones. And I kept forgetting that it was him, that he played this character, Robert Picardo, aka the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. Yeah, who'd have thought that, yeah, because we would see him having played this character, then playing the Doctor, the holographic Doctor in Star Trek. Just one of those things, yeah, but obviously, with what Robert Picardo, because yeah, who doesn't love Robert Picardo? He's a great guy, great actor. With what he brought to the performance of Meg Mucklebones, being in all that makeup and just, yeah, being a large green-skinned hag, just, it's great. And of course, yeah, Meg Mucklebones being one of the Lord Darkness's henchmen, and with trying to, distract and lure Jack, because planning on eating and gobbling him up and such. And Jack trying to find a way to, get out of the situation and pretending to complicate on Meg's beauty and so on, even by having her see the reflection of herself in a shield that he's holding. But yeah, just like the sequence with Meg, just really good, and just, yeah, the practical makeup, and with Robert Picardo's performance, the voice, and just, yeah, it's so good. And of course, yeah, eventually Jack would defeat Meg, just by doing his sword like that, and yep, Meg is done for, going back down into the swamp. Yep. So, yeah, that was a pretty interesting sequence, and yeah, because, again, seems as though that Meg Mucklebones being another, great character to come from legend, right next to the Lord of Darkness. But we're getting there, Lord of Darkness, just, yeah. And because, yeah, the movie building up to, of course, when we're going to see the Lord of Darkness in all of his glory, and yeah, Tim Curry, just, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so if the characters still proceeding their way to the kingdom of the Lord of Darkness. And even when, like, say, yeah, and to still speed things up some, because they start to make their way down to, like, an underground place. In fact, they accidentally fall down, and yeah, just to put it this, because they all slip and fall down and end up inside underground, the dungeons and stuff like that, in a cage, yeah, in a prison cell. And, well, just so happens that they cross paths with someone that the dwarves personally know. And that, of course, being Blunder. And we finally see Blunder out of the metal helmet and such that he was wearing. And, yep, because we see Chiron Shaw's face, and, yeah. And apparently Blunder, after having been betrayed by the Lord of Darkness, the Lord of Darkness being through with him, now he's joining their side. And technically, he's been redeemed, so, yeah. Also, a moment where, you know, how they're ever going to find a way to get out of this place. Not to mention that they will be barbecued, according to Blunder. And we just so happen to see 2 demon cooks whom pop up at times up to now. The 2 demon cooks being played by Ian Longmer and Michael Crane. Yeah. And to go ahead and name some of the other cast members, because, like, there was like a lot of cast members that all of them played the various fairy Fireflight dancers, okay, in the director's cut. There was Ian Stewart, Jeff Davies, Sally Dewhurst, Jane Devon Shire, Amanda Rose, Joey Baxter, Sharon Brown, Nikki Dewhurst, Debbie Greenwell, Helen Holland, Anna Kipling, Samantha Newberry, Belinda Payne, Gabriel Piotrowski. You know, I'm butchering some of their names, but you know me sometimes. Bear with me still. And Jeremy Sachs. Yeah, that's all of them. And there was one dwarf, uncredited, played by John Cumming, and Tick, being played by the top talented dwarf actor Mike Edmonds. Yeah, if you know who Mike Edmonds is, you know. But anyways, so yeah, that's all of them. That's all the other cast members of this movie. But yeah, so, and also, yeah, I already mentioned the Demon Cooks, and one more, well, technically 2, but one more, like, character, that this just does physical performances. I'll mention it shortly, but yeah. So again, Blunder mentioning to them that they will be barbecued and such, and we see the Demon Cooks, and well, there's a moment where Jack, thinking as though that, yeah, because Una is the answer to help them get out of this situation. And, well, this would lead to Una revealing herself to the others because, yeah, she can be bigger and so on. And, well, even Jack establishing to Una that, that they would have been dead had the secret of theirs be kept and such. But, yeah, I mean, eventually Una doesn't take too long to oblige and help them escape. Even, leaving Jack in there at one point, but no, they let him out as well, okay? And the plans that they're going to do by this point, well, obviously they're going to find the female unicorn that's been captured, as well as for Jack, finding Lily, and finding a way to take down the Lord of Darkness, and until he physically appears. Not to mention that there are a few times that the Lord of Darkness interacts with his father. In fact, there's one moment where the Lord of Darkness shares with his father that he apparently has a crush on Lily, and, with what the Lord of Darkness's father tells him, to have Lily be one of them, and thus, that's what the Lord of Darkness is going to do, and the Lord of Darkness attempting for Lily to be his eternal mate. So, with Jack and the others, some of them did split up, and with what the various things they're going to do, underground and such. And there's one moment where, yeah, because we do see Lily, she's running, and ran past, fire that was on the ground. It actually went out as she ran. That was really cool. And eventually, yeah, she would find herself in the main room where the Lord of Darkness resides. And, well, one thing that happens, this sequence where Lily finds herself seeing all these various gifts that the Lord of Darkness has left for her, like plates and, very nice shiny things, and yeah, and there's a long dining room table, and just, yeah, the temptation that's trying to get to her. And one moment that happens where a black dress starts to dance. This figure, the black dress that comes to life, and it starts to dance with Lily. And really good music right here from Jerry Goldsmith, where it just gets intense, and with the dance. And yeah, and the dancing black dress, the body performance of the dancing black dress being Liz Gilbert. So yeah, so Lily, being in the middle of the situation where, yeah, she's dancing with the black dress, and eventually, when the black dress would be on her. Yep, the temptation getting to her, just, yeah. And, well, not long after that, and now that she's in that black dress, and she sees herself in the mirror, something starts to emerge out of the mirror. His hands, his hooves, and when we see his face, we finally see the Lord of Darkness. Tim Curry himself, baby. Yeah! Seeing the Lord of Darkness finally in all of his glory. And again, just the Lord of Darkness being definitely a great character and great performance from Curry himself in this movie. Yeah. And yeah, to say more about the Lord of Darkness, well, what's there not to love about Tim Curry? Again, this is Tim Curry we're talking about. He never disappoints, even if he's been in movies where they were kind of Tim Curry's always enjoyable, and he's always great at playing any villain, whether if it's on screen or voice acting. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you think of, say, the villains he's played, well, obviously, the Lord of Darkness being one of them, but obviously, there's also Pennywise, Long John Silver, and that black stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Just, yeah. Because, we've seen all the various films where Tim Curry, most of the time, he's played a villain. And really good at it. Yeah. But yeah, so seeing the Lord of Darkness and all of his glory on screen, and this is where we finally see him, and, because the dialogue and the voice performance that Tim Curry gives, and yeah, the fact that it's obvious that his voice was deep in some. But yeah, he's got great lines, and with his first interactions with Lily, just, it's great, and the Lord of Darkness is at times being very polite, and being very calm with Lily at times, and just telling Lily at first to relax, and just, quiet, and just, and some of the best lines that he has, because he tells Lily that she is now his mate, and so on, and Lily want no part of it whatsoever, and, the Lord of Darkness, saying, beneath the skin, we are already one, and, even now, the evil seed in what you've done germinates within you. Just, it's so great. The Lord of Darkness with what Tim Curry brings to the performance, the main antagonist of this movie, just fantastic, without a doubt. Okay, but to speed things up some still, because, yeah, well, Jack and the others, well, because they've now, by now, they've approached where they can see and hear the voice of the Lord of Darkness, as well as Lily, and Gump pointing out to Jack that, there's nothing he can do right now to save Lily, and because, yeah, but, Gump telling Jack that he should be thankful that, she's still alive and well, and of course, and Jack, he has, he still trusts Lily, even when, say, Gump and the others, well, they're not really sure, just, yeah. And what they do next, and, well, Because the Lord of Darkness he's planning to have the female unicorn be executed, and thus there will be no more sunrise, no more dawn, for all eternity, nighttime. Just, to the Lord of Darkness's liking. And well, it occurs to both Jack and Gump, they discover that the Lord of Darkness can be destroyed by pure light of the sun. So their attempts to save the female unicorn, as well as defeat the Lord of Darkness, and for Jack to save Lily's life. Because again, Jack and Gump discovering that the pure light of the sun will destroy the Lord of Darkness. And what they all do is they actually go down to where the kitchen is, and by taking some of those metal steel plates, saucer plates, and throwing them like frisbees, throwing them to one another and passing it on. Even when the demon cooks, there's a moment where the demon cooks tried to take on and defeat Jack and the others, but of course they end up taking down the demon cooks. And not to mention they do save Blunder. Blunder was this close to being barbecued, and he was tied up, and he had an apple in his mouth, so they save him, and Blunder joining them. And by placing all of these, steel saucer plates in the right position, and when dawn strikes, and the light beam will hit at one of them, and the light beam making its way to where the Lord of Darkness is. And not to mention that Screwball has to be on top of the mountain, the hill and such, and to prepare when the sunlight hits, and so on. And also, not to mention that, the male unicorn's horn, because with the Lord of Darkness having gained control and power of it, and more moments that the Lord of Darkness has with Lily, just being very swag, like the Tim Curry swag, and, having a little bit of fun with Lily, offering her to sit down and they can talk and such, and because Lily refusing to sit down, but the Lord of Darkness, this close to losing his patience, just, and whichever she prefers, to sit down or anything like that. And in fact, she was this close to sitting down, but then decided not to, and with what was going on with the chair, and the Lord of Darkness just, losing his, pardon my French, but it's true, losing his shit, / his cool with Lily, and just, But then, Lily mentioning to the Lord of Darkness that she wants to be the one to kill the female unicorn, and this pleases the Lord of Darkness. It kind of turns him on and such. But so that's what's gonna happen. But little does the Lord of Darkness know what she's actually going to be doing, right? Even if it occurs to us before it happens. And again, like I said, Jack still having full confidence and trust in Lily, and with the climax almost upon us. So the time now comes for the execution of the female unicorn. The Lord of Darkness and Lily being there, as well as Jack and Gump in hiding positions, preparing to strike at the Lord of Darkness. And still, when dawn hits, so And in fact, Gump, told Jack that, he had to kill Lily because with Lily having joined the Lord of Darkness, having joined the dark side and such, but not really. Unbeknownst to Gump. And Jack, again, still having full confidence in Lily that, she didn't turn her back or anything like that. And, because Jack was supposed to target at Lily, but no, because what happens is that when Lily is now given the task to execute the female unicorn, that's not what happens. She frees the female unicorn. Jack strikes at the Lord of Darkness, an arrow to his chest and so on. And the climax happening, the battle, the final battle and such, the final confrontation with the Lord of Darkness, everything, all hell breaks loose. And And, again, from the two dwarves and Una, they're all in position, Blunder as well, when the sunbeam hits. And, the climax, the fights here and there, Jack taking on the Lord of Darkness, and this is the first time that Jack and the Lord of Darkness come face to face with one another, and again, with the female unicorn having been, set free thanks to Lily, and with the male unicorn's horn, it was almost lost, it was almost burned, but thankfully Jack, he saved it, and a moment where he impales it in the Lord of Darkness. And to still speed things up some, when dawn hits, the sunlight, the beam hits, and Una had to wake up Screwball to get in position, and thus, just in the nick of time, the sunbeam hits, and all the various, saucer steel plates, and the sunbeam making its way directly, striking/hitting at the Lord of Darkness. And again, with that male unicorn's horn in his chest, impaling him, and the Lord of Darkness calling out to his father, "Father, protect me!" And the Lord of Darkness, telling Jack and the others that, "You can't defeat me, I am the Lord of Darkness," because, he's him being responsible for the nighttime, and also the Lord of Darkness mentioning to Jack that they are technically brothers and such, for eternity, eternal brothers and so on. And with the sunbeam pushing the Lord of Darkness out into the void, out into the nighttime sky, but the Lord of Darkness holding on with all his grip and all that all the strength he's got left, and trying not to be taken down, and Gump telling Jack to defeat and kill the Lord of Darkness once and for all. Well, Jack, he didn't kill him, he just, throwing something at him just to have him let go, and just, the Lord of Darkness flying into the void, into the nighttime sky, and he's defeated once and for all. So the Lord of Darkness is defeated, and thankfully, there will be another dawn and a sunrise. They're the same thing, but And after that, because everything's okay now. That is except for Lily, because Lily, having be put under a spell by the Lord of Darkness, according to Gump, and when Jack realizes and finds out that, the only way to wake up and to get Lily out of that spell is to find the ring she tossed, and, from there on. And Jack, he says his goodbyes to Gump, Screwball, Una, Brown Tom, Blunder, and because he, after that, he jumps back into the water, and he manages to this time find the ring, and, because with that waking up Lily, and, seems as though that they will get married and, live happily ever after. Just the ending to this movie, it ends off really great, and because it is a fantasy/fairy tale film, and of course, has to have its happily ever after. And one of the last things we see is, Jack, saying goodbye to Lily for now. They'll see each other tomorrow. And a moment where Jack can see off in the distance from Gump, Screwball, Brown Tom, and Blunder, Una, and the unicorns. They're all there, and Jack waving at them, and he walks off, and boom, the end credits roll. Again, just a great way for this movie to end off with its happily ever after, without a doubt. And as it should be, because again, it is a fantasy/fairy tale film. But, Ridley Scott's Legend. Sadly, not one of his best films, and it's understandable, and because when it was first released in 1985 with its theatrical cut, there was a lot of stuff that didn't make sense in the plot, but when the director's cut came out, it did patch things up. And again, like I said, everybody, like me, would prefer and go for the director's cut, and with what the director's cut had to offer for Ridley Scott's Legend, it did patch things up. It made the film, pretty much better. You get what I'm saying? It didn't make it, a really successor or anything like that. Just, it did, because the stuff that were left out and just didn't make sense, and it was a big head-scratcher when it was first out in theaters. You get my point. But just, everything about Legend, from beginning to end, not that bad at all. And for me, being one of those that actually comes to really enjoy and like Ridley Scott's Legend. The story, the characters, the casting, the beautiful practical effects, the sets, the makeup, the creatures, great performances from, most prominently Tim Curry, Robert Picardo, Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, David Bennett, the list goes on. The music and score, and in the director's cut, Jerry Goldsmith's score, with what Ridley Scott and William Hjortsberg, if I'm probably mispronouncing his name some, you know who I'm talking about. Both of them, what they brought to this fantasy/fairy tale film, not that bad at all. Again, it's not one of Ridley Scott's best, but this movie does have its lovers, and me being one of them. And of course, that goes for all of us that prefer and go to the director's cut. And again, that being the one version that not only for a lot of people, but Ridley Scott himself prefers. And I'm giving Legend, just what the heck, 8 out of 10 stars. Yes, 8 out of 10 stars for Ridley Scott's Legend. And that, of course, would go for the director's cut, but yeah. Okay, but yeah, so what about you guys? What did you think of Legend itself? Is it by any chance one of your top favorite Ridley Scott films? I'm sure for a lot of you, you prefer the director's cut, but if you like, say, the other versions of Legend from the US version, the European version, but probably a lot of you would prefer the director's cut, but you let me know on that. And who were some of your favorite characters? Obviously, it would have to be the Lord of Darkness, and that goes for me. Favorite moments, favorite lines, moments where you were just like, whoa, oh my gosh, just overall, did you enjoy this movie itself? And whether if you had seen the theatrical version, the director's cut, whichever which, again, overall, what do you think of Ridley Scott's Legend itself? And with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Ridley Scott's Legend, and most prominently, the director's cut. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, Ridley Scott Movie Week has just begun, so stay tuned later tonight, because the next Ridley Scott film that I'll be reviewing, well, let's just say it's one that stars Orlando Bloom, and it has to do with a kingdom of heaven. You know what I'm talking about. Again, stay tuned for that. Part of Ridley Scott Movie Week. Take care, happy anniversary to Legend, and peace out.